Welcome back and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Now, as mentioned, our focus is on Tanzania, which has been marred by election chaos since Wednesday last week. Despite protests, President Samia Suluhu Hassan was earlier today sworn in for a second term in office. The situation across the border raises fundamental questions for our entire region. When an internet blackout persists for days, when political opposition is systematically sidelined, and when security forces are reportedly clashing with protesters, what does this mean for the stability of Tanzania? And critically, what is the ripple effect here in Nairobi and throughout the EAC? That's what we want to interrogate tonight. My guest is already with me. To my immediate right, we have Deogratius Munishi, who is the International Secretary Chadema Party. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
And next to him, we have Stella Gara, governance and security expert. Always great to have you, Stella.
Thank you for having me.
We equally expect Onchari Oyeyo, who is an international relations analyst. But even as we wait, let's dive straight into this conversation. And perhaps, Deogratius, will start with you. Hali ikoje sasa hivi Tanzania?
The situation is, as you might have seen by yourself, and many others have seen, it's not good. Tanzania is in a very bad shape right now. As we speak right now, Dar es Salaam, as far as I understand, is still in a lockdown kind of situation. Nobody's getting out. People are being starved while in their home because they cannot go out to buy food stuff. No business is running out, and the moment maybe some few shops happen to open, then foodstuffs are being sold at a very high price, you know. And for those common wananchi, then it is really difficult for them. On the other side, people are still finding their missing loved ones. And as per the reports we are gathering, dead bodies are washing different streets, whether in Dar es Salaam, whether in Mwanza, whether it is in Mbeya. So it's all over the country. And we are hearing some dead bodies are being put in
Shallow graves.
Shallow graves, yes, as we might have heard. And some hospitals are being overwhelmed by these dead bodies because they have nowhere to send. And we hear police are going round to collect those dead bodies and bury so that they can erase evidence and even contradict the statistics that have been coming out. But this, I am sure, will not work for them, because as long as internet is back, everything will be into the public domain, and everybody will see by them, as we have started seeing right now.
There were reports that electricity was also cut out. Was it true? Is it now back? There was so much misinformation because of the blackout.
I'm not quite sure of electricity, but what I can say with the internet shutdown, so a lot of services were also like shut down, so people couldn't access anything. And with the level of violence by security forces against wananchi, I can imagine that could also be true, that electricity was missing.
Okay. Now, as you've said, internet has been restored, and Tanzanians are speaking up. There are those that are sending screenshots from polisi, I think. Nimeona moja yasema epuka kusambaza picha au video zenye kuleta taharuki au kutweza utu wa mtu. Kufanya hivyo ni kosa la jinai na ukibainika hatua kali za kisheria zitachukuliwa. Ni ukweli hii ama?
Yeah, that message is circulating within Tanzania, and I'm sure it is from the police. So they're sending out mass messages to the public, trying to warn that if you send out the images which downgrade the dignity of whoever maybe has passed away, then it is a criminal offense. It is one of those ways they are using to threaten the public not to bring the truth into the public, which in reality doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah, because there is no way you can tell me that I should not report anything that you see on the ground, that the people are being massacred in the street. They are there just like animals with no help, and then you don't bring into the public domain. That will be insane.
Okay. Stella, coming to you, I mean, just today we saw President Samia Suluhu being sworn in. And in her victory speech, she described the election as free and democratic and referred to the protesters who challenged the results as unpatriotic. If truly the elections were free and democratic, as she mentioned, why were opposition candidates barred? I mean, these are the questions that we're asking. Why was internet cut off? I mean, clearly there's nothing to worry about. So why did we see everything that we saw?
You know, what we are seeing in Tanzania is practically the theater of the absurd. Everything is absolutely illogical. Everyone can see what is wrong, but for some strange reason, the mouths that are speaking are trying to affirm a situation that does not exist. When you are going into an election, assuming there was no constitution, there are certain things that just anybody would be looking at to determine whether the competition is fair or not. If it was a race, we first of all check if you're both starting from the same line. You know, if your leg is in front of the line, you have to stop first and make sure everyone is behind the line. If it's an election, we are looking at, number one, fairness in terms of the eligibility criteria and allowing all groups in society that want to access the leadership to access it. Number two, after eligibility, ensuring that you allow everybody who's running that race to run a fair race and only be disqualified under extreme circumstances. Because we are saying sometimes our laws bar certain things from happening, for example, declaring when campaign should end. If you exceed by 5-10 minutes because your rally was a bit late, that's not a reason to disqualify a candidate. But if you exceed by a full day or you continue late into the night, then maybe it could be grounds for you to be disqualified. Why do they allow for those kinds of leeway? Because elections are sensitive. Elections are very sensitive exercises, and so you must ensure that everybody is seen to be included, even under very tight circumstances. The other thing is to ensure that worthy opponents are meeting on the ballot. So you have a candidate in the name of Samia Suluhu who is supposed to be meeting worthy opponents on the ballot, but she begins by imprisoning one in the name of treason, and then the Electoral Commission, which seems to be working at her behest, decides to disqualify another from ACT Wazalendo, Mr. Mpina. Now, the people who are left on the ballot look like pawns in the CCM game. So the question you're asking yourself is, was there a competition at all? And I know I have heard very many people saying this was a coronation, and indeed I want to agree with them, that this was definitely a coronation. The other thing is, you are not having an election for you as a person, that we are electing Stella Agara. You're having an election so that the people can have universal suffrage to elect the person they want to have as their leader. If they say they are not happy about the laws as they are, and they want to see certain changes in the law before they go into an election, how about consider doing that? This conversation about making reforms of the electoral laws in Tanzania has been going on for so long. There was plenty of time to make those changes. But then for some reason, CCM prefers to have elections under the current constitution, because then it allows them to play the kinds of games we are seeing them playing right now. The other thing is that assuming you're not going to have reforms of all the laws, at least do the minimum reforms to make provisions that will secure the result of that election and ensure that it's seen to be free and fair. And the next level, if you call for a vote and people do not show up at the polling station, you may assume that they did not feel like coming. But if you call for a vote, people do not show up at the polling station, and they actually protest and tell you exactly what they're thinking, then you know your citizens are not happy about that election. They don't feel like it's representative of what they would consider a process to elect a leader for themselves. I think so much has gone wrong. By the time we start talking about social media shutdown, whether or not those a power blackout or not, I think this election was problematic from the beginning. I was reading the SADC Election Observer Mission report, and I'm actually extremely excited about the fact that they have tried to be very balanced in their reporting. They have documented some of the issues that are coming from the citizens, and they have also indicated that they are struggling tremendously to reach officials from INEC, to speak to officials from the government who are supposed to be speaking to them, updating them on what has been put in place for them to determine if the election is free and fair. And I have also established that they've noted that there are so many standards set under SADC for member states that have not been fulfilled. I'm saying this because their compatriots in the East Africa community have not even bothered to document some of those things. And amongst the first presidents to congratulate this now newly appointed despot are the presidents of the East Africa community. As a matter of fact, we are required to hold each other accountable on the standards that have been set for elections in the East Africa community. That election does not even meet the standards set. So, for me, I think there's a game that is being played in this region. I talked about this in this studio a few months ago, and I said that there's a coalition of bad manners in the East Africa community. I think now, today, I can confirm for a fact that there's a coalition of bad manners. When you see the president of Uganda congratulating Samia, you see the president of Kenya even saying that he's speaking on behalf of Kenyans in congratulating Samia.
The South African Development Community, which is SADC. And just to inform our viewers who are not aware, the SADC, together with other observer missions, released preliminary reports describing the polls as deeply flawed, citing intimidation of opposition figures, suppression of media freedoms, and limited voter participation. All these criticisms have been branded as external, and we'll get to that. But let's go back to when she took power. I mean, she was a breath of fresh air, and the people of Tanzania sort of had hope. She was a reformer president who believed and stood for democracy, rule of law and civil society. She even released political detainees, if I'm not wrong. What changed, and when did it change?
Okay, I beg to differ, of course,
sure,
with so many people. When Samia Suluhu started, of course, they gave her a red carpet without even reasoning why. Were they dealing with an individual or with an institution? I think they didn't ask themselves that question.
Okay.
And number two, even if they were dealing with an individual, she showed from the very beginning that she is not a reformer. And she's just a performer. Like, not even a performer, a comedian kind of, you know? Yes.
Why do you say that?
Because what reforms has she brought in the country, in Tanzania, since when she started? Releasing prisoners or political detainees is not a reform, and it wasn't something that we needed to beg her to release. It was something mandatory, because those political detainees, in the first place, were not supposed to be in prisons, because they were just arbitrarily arrested and detained, and therefore you cannot release a political and then you say you are a reformer. Reforming what? Okay?
Okay.
You cannot uplift the ban on political parties' activities, and then you want us to cheer you as a reform. No, that was illegal. It is their constitutional right, and whoever who banned the political rallies shouldn't have done that. So, and there was nothing to negotiate about it. Okay? So that's why I'm saying, for those who were cheering that Samia Suluhu Hassan is a reformer, a fresh air, there was nothing like fresh air, because she was part of the mess that Magufuli left in Tanzania, because she was vice president by then, and #1 assistant of the then dictator of Tanzania. So if there were abductions, if there were those things like political parties couldn't do the activities, she was part and parcel of it. So when she came and uplifted them, and then she wanted people to cheer for her as a reformer, I'm sorry, that wasn't the case. And immediately, when the things started changing, that's a question even you asked, You know, there were people within the former administration that were, who were branded as, just, sorry to use this word, normal hooligans within the governance, because those who were abetting violation of human rights, abusing their position as public officers to suppress other people. Some of them were kicked. I don't know if they were kicked out. They were not reappointed by Magufuli, I remember, by like the then regional commissioner of Dar es Salaam. Okay, and who was also sanctioned by the US. Okay, but the moment Samia Suluhu Hassan appointed him, reappointed the guy, and then you could see this is the turning point. Because if you are bringing, I am sorry, hooligans in the government, that means Samia Suluhu Hassan himself didn't mean what she wanted the public or the international community to believe.
Okay.
So since then, she was looking for 2025, and that's why she wasn't able to deliver with the other things, because her mind was focusing on 2025 elections. And that's why you could see all those, I mean, the government critics since 2020. We started seeing the wave of abductions from 2023, okay? Killings of critics, government critics from 2023. Why did she start that? Okay, she might say it wasn't her, but at least it was under her watch, because she is the one who has to guarantee security of the citizens. But she was looking, she was there, she couldn't do anything. And when that wave, the wave increased, still, she came out blaming, and the little she could say is like, abductions are happening everywhere in the world, even in the US. You see? So it is someone who had lost touch with what was happening on the ground with the normal citizens. It is, but number two, I don't want to say she is that incompetent human being to lead the country. But at this point in time, I can conclude so, she has no that capacity.
Okay.
Yeah. If you cannot control your security forces to guarantee peace and security for your own citizens as a leader, then what else can you provide?
Okay. All right. Onchari, karibu sana to the conversation.
Asante sana. Thank you so much. And sorry for showing up a bit late.
No worries. Maybe you can jump straight to it, because we're discussing what we saw in the past few days in Tanzania. And maybe from where you sit, do you think the residents or citizens of Tanzania are justified to be as angry as they were?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think when it comes to justification of the anger, that is justified, of course. They have a reason for that. And I think it's late. It came a little bit too late, because Suluhu has not begun misbehaving yesterday. Like my friend had just said, she began doing that way back in 2023. Actually, it was way earlier. As soon as Magufuli died and then she assumed the reins of power as the president, she began planning for her election to office. And she knew that I think she was going to face opposition, which I think was not going to be as strong as she had expected or anticipated. So she overreacted. She overdid herself in trying to prepare the ground for election. So the anger is justified, and it came late. Actually, I think the opposition figures should have begun mobilizing Tanzanians so as to stage protests, demonstrations, riots, and make as much noise as possible instead of waiting until election day. That is why it was not possible to stop the train of her re-election or election to office. Yeah. Okay,
Stella, jumping into that, because I'm curious, was the timing really wrong? Because if you look at what has happened today or these past few days, for example, if Tundu Lissu was really free, wouldn't he be blamed for all this?
And I'm thinking that would be the reason why, if I was Tundu Lissu, I would not accept to leave the cells just before the elections have been done. Because this was definitely going to be blamed on him. And if Tanzania has a functioning intelligence system, which I know they do, then they had known that this kind of violence was going to emerge after actually on election day and after the election. So they definitely wanted someone to blame. As you can see right now, they're trying to stick it on everyone, including Kenyans. They definitely knew that this was coming, and they were looking for a scapegoat for it. even if they had blamed it on him, like I said in my first submission, some of the things that have gone absolutely wrong in this election are so glaring. You don't even need to be explained to you. You just know that this was going to result anyway. Most people did not think that they were going to get this level of reaction from Tanzanians because they've been known to be very calm, peaceful people. But definitely something was going to happen. I am extremely impressed by the energy that they have shown in pushing back, especially because we are no longer at that point where people did not know what government is. We are no longer at that place where people don't understand what systems are. And even for those who have the least knowledge, at least they know that they have a right to vote. They have a right to choose the person that they want to have to be their leader. And they already know that there has been a tyranny in the continent interfering with elections and the results of elections and resulting in leaders who may not necessarily be the most popular person taking over power. These people have also been on a very long journey demanding for reforms of their laws so that they can be able to have better electoral laws and therefore better quality elections. And so having been part of those conversations for a very long time and then seeing people who are leading those conversations, like the likes of Humphrey Polepole being abducted, seeing the suppression of people. Deogratias has mentioned the number of people who, for example, were disappeared. You know, why are you disappearing people? Assuming, this is just assuming there was a weight of what sin is bigger than the other. I would rather you have political prisoners than have them dead, because at least you can produce them alive and hand them back to their families. Now that we are counting 83 as at the time of the abduction of Boni, and now the numbers have grown higher, what is she telling the mothers of those citizens in that nation? And so the timing is such that there was a lot of mischief, and I realized that CCM has been up to mischief throughout this election period. And so there was a lot of mischief, and there was an attempt to ensure that then the opposition is shown to be, first of all, not patriotic and prone to violence. Unfortunately, things have worked out differently. Yeah. The other thing that I've noticed is that there is an attempt to make everybody who is talking about the reality feel like they're mad, practically gaslighting the citizens of Tanzania. So you even you at some point you sit down and you ask yourself, am I supposed to be saying that there's a problem in Tanzania? I saw how when you asked whether there was a blackout or not, the Deogratias was struggling whether to agree that there was a blackout. But the truth is, when you see the kinds of fires that we saw in those protests, at least Kenya's experience, normally power is shut down, especially when those protests are so big. And so as soon as that happens, you have curtailed several levels of access. We have also seen tear gas being thrown into the nation of Kenya at the Namanga border. So assuming there was nothing happening and those elections were free and fair and peaceful, then why is there tear gas being lobbed into the nation of Kenya? Nowhere else. Just let's talk about Kenya alone, because we know that tear gas was not from Kenya. So something is fundamentally off. The timing of it had a lot of mischief in it. And apart from that, this is the rise of a different level of dictatorship in this continent that seems to be generally approved. When I say generally approved, I'm talking about the AUC chair congratulating Samia as soon as the inauguration happened, knowing too well that the country is burning as the inauguration is happening. I'm talking about the East African presidents all congratulating Samia while right after the inauguration, knowing too well that the country was burning.
Do you feel like they endorsed whatever happened, the human rights violations by them?
Actually, what they have done is to what is the word that is normally used for it? When you cover up nicely, like and they have basically concluded that level of human rights abuses is okay in an election. So what happens when you do that is that in coming elections, that will be extended beyond what has happened in Tanzania, and it will still pass at the EAC.
Okay. Because
they're setting a standard of bad manners that is going to continue circulating in the region, and nobody's ever going to be held accountable. Because you think about it, the 8 of them are sitting together and they're now talking about the Kenyan election in 2027 or the Ugandan election in a few months. And then someone tries to point at violence in Uganda. Really, Tanzania, for example, will not be able to even talk about it because look at the election that has been able to elevate her into the presidency. I don't think that the presidency is a matter of life and death. If you were inspirational and people loved you for a certain period of time and you have now lost value before the people, it helps to just go home. It really helps to just go home. Some constitutions allow you to come back later and seek a fresh mandate. And when you come back, like in Nigeria, you're able to come back and do whatever it is that was pending. And by that time, the people have seen why maybe you should be in power. But insisting on staying because you think you're the most valuable person to be in power is actually very problematic, and it actually goes against all the tenets of democracy.
Okay.
And I mean the tenets of democracy as it is, and also African democracy and the way we practice it in our traditional setup. We did not give people who shed blood an opportunity to hold power.
Okay.
So the butcher of Tanzania truly needs to be held accountable for all the people who have died in the process of her trying to acquire that position.
All right, Your Grace is coming to you, and please break it down for us, because during these few days, there was so much speculation, because we did not know what was going on, and Kenyans were sort of trying to fill in the missing pieces. In an ideal situation with a history of Tanzania, how is power split between Zanzibar and Tanganyika?
Zanzibar, on its own, they have their own political affairs. And maybe just to highlight, Zanzibar side have been experiencing this chaos since 1995 when we had the first multi-party elections. It was bloodshedding after bloodshedding in each election, okay? Until when they managed to clean a bit their house by changing their constitution and bringing the power sharing kind of agreement that is also contained in their constitution, where you have, I don't want to call a sort of a coalition, at least the main two parties, the first and the second, will form the government. Much as that is not respected here nowadays, because we saw what happened in 2015 before the results were nullified. And this time around in 2020, again, there were bloodsheds in Zanzibar because of contesting the elections. On the other side of the mainland, of course, we are known, we Tanzanians are calm people, amicable, who like to settle our own affairs. But that is no longer the case, as demonstrated by this protest, the protest in the last 4 days. So on the other side, about the power, so Zanzibar is just semi-autonomous and they run their own affairs. And then Madam, if she was legitimately elected, then she should run the affairs of the United Republic of Tanzania, including Zanzibar, but on specific items which, on matters which are part of the union affairs. But unfortunately, she has not been elected, and that's why I always insist she has not been elected, because Tanzanians didn't go into the polling stations on 29th and didn't vote for anybody who has been declared as a winner. So if anybody has been declared a winner in Tanzania out of the 29th sham election, that person is illegitimate and he cannot be recognized as a leader of Tanzania up until now, because Tanzanians are still in streets protesting. Not protesting Samia Suluhu Hassan, because I see there are people trying to build a hopeless narrative because she is a woman, she is a Muslim, and she is coming from Zanzibar. That is not the case. She's being protested because of her own incompetence.
Okay.
Whether even if we could, it was a man, but as long as you're incompetent and people feel that you are incompetent to lead us to where we want to go, then they will definitely protest against you, whether you're a woman, whether you're a Muslim or a Christian, whether you are from Zanzibar or mainland. And we have never, for those saying because she is a Muslim, we have had how many Muslim presidents in Tanzania?
Yeah.
2. We had Ali Hassan Mwinyi, and he was coming from Zanzibar. He led the country, and he got the support he needed from all the people of Tanzania by then. There was no issue, because he provided the leadership, and people felt that he is competent enough. Then we had Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete from 2005 up until 2015. He is a Muslim coming from a small tribe in Tanzania mainland, and people had no issue about where he's coming from, about his religion, because Tanzanians are not looking to as the former president, the first said, build churches or mosques. People want to have a better life in their own country, and as long as you can provide it, they will support you. And if you cannot provide that, then they will protest you. That doesn't matter whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man or a Christian. Period.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. Onchari, coming to you, I mean, still staying with the history, if you look at the history of how CCM came to be, we can call it an independence party. Are we seeing the bad side, the ugly side of independence parties? Is this a clear example? Because from the outside, looking in, a majority were like, oh, you know, this is the party that fought for them then. Of course, then it was TANU. But is this sort of another side to these independence parties? I mean, Kenya has been there before. We know how it turned out.
I don't think it's necessarily something that can be blamed on the party, because at the end of the day, you know, it's people make parties. And there are places, of course, you know, maybe there are very few. If you go to South Africa, for instance, ANC is considered an independence party. And they've accepted what we call internal reforms. And you can find very healthy competition inside the party. And in some cases, they contest and they lose elections and they accept it. We don't see the kind of violence we witnessed in Tanzania. So it's not necessarily something that can be blamed on independence parties. And I think it boils down to the kind of structures we have in the continent. The AU, like I've always said, is a toothless bulldog. We've seen charlatans, you know, sending their messages of congratulations to the lady, you know, for being sworn in as president, which again now is an endorsement of that kind of jostling for power. So next time, if we see the kind of misbehavior with that kind of degree in Uganda, it will be accepted, it will be treated as something that is just expected and normal. So that is the kind of environment we keep on supporting every time we have an election in an African country. So that is a failure at the regional level. That is now this African community of 8 badly mannered countries, and by extension, the continent. And again, it reminds me of what could have been done by Raila Odinga if we could have been fortunate enough, of course, to serve as the AU Commission Chair, because that is a man who fought for democracy, a man who has been very, very key in the building of political parties in the country, who has been recognized in the continent and beyond. I think he could have felt so bad witnessing what has just happened in Tanzania. So once again, I get to be reminded that the continent missed out on someone who could have assisted in the transformation of our political structure. So the continent has failed, that is the AU specifically. The regional body has failed. Our president made a mistake by sending that kind of message to Suluhu, but it was expected because back here, things are not the way we should expect. And what I've gotten to accept, and I'm very happy about, is the level of involvement the citizens of the East African community have demonstrated in the Tanzanian election. Kenyans have decided to help, and they've done it in a very nice way. Africans in the diaspora have paid attention, and they've played a very key role, just like they did when we had issues here in 2024 during our, financial bill demonstrations. So that kind of involvement is very good, and it shows that even as our leaders try to suppress voices of democracy and reason, citizens will always do what? Rise to the occasion and make a difference. Now, the decision by Lissu to remain, behind bars, even as elections were being conducted, was in bad faith. If I was advising him, I could have told him to come out. That is what warriors do. That is what courageous men do. Come out. If you're going to be blamed, it's okay. Because even if you remain behind bars, at the end of the day, you'll be blamed. The guys who are demonstrating are being inspired by their leaders behind bars. I'd rather you come out, you get arrested as you lead your people in their fight for freedom than cowardly say, I'm going to remain.
But what was he going to do, really? You want to, okay,
yeah.
Before you finish.
Just before it jumps in, there's an element of lack of direction when demonstrators come out and they destroy property without a sense of what? Focus. If someone is there leading them and saying we need these elections to be stopped, okay, even if he's arrested, the world will see. the reason as to why he has been arrested is because there's a sham election going on and it has to be stopped. Actually, I've listened to Tanzanian media and there are so many guys, so many opposition leaders focusing on Lissu, meaning he's some kind of leader of the opposition. They expected him to be out there giving direction. So he should have come out and he should have led Tanzanians in saying we don't have to have this election at this point because it's not free, it's not fair, it's not democratic. So the riots could have been much, much stronger with this kind of leadership by Lissu, and most likely the difference could have been bigger than what we are seeing now. Anytime there's leadership in a demonstration, results come out. Kenya is an example. Okay? Yeah.
Okay, you wanted to add on to that?
I just wanted to clarify because I think people maybe missed something about Lissu remaining in prison up until now. And this is a question that I've been asked several times, and maybe I don't know where it was coming from. People thought Lissu refused to come out of prison. Okay, number one, Tundu Lissu has been charged with treason charge. And as per the laws in Tanzania, treason charge is not bailable.
Okay.
Okay. And number two, there was no any point in time that he was granted that permission. Oh, now you can go home. And he said, no, I'm remaining behind. No, because legal proceeding, the trial is ongoing. And actually it was supposed to continue tomorrow, but unfortunately because of this, the tension in the country, it has been postponed until the 10th. So he is remaining in prison, not because he wanted and he didn't want to come out. It is because the framework and the nature of the charges, much as they are fabricated, cannot allow him to come out.
Okay.
And the number two, why is he in prison? It is because also Samia Suluhu Hassan and the autocratic party didn't want him to be out in the electoral period because they knew they would lose everything. That's why they had to keep him. And that's one of the reasons why she had to frame Lissu that has committed treason charge. So if demanding electoral reforms amounts to treason crimes, then that is what Samia Suluhu was telling the world, which in reality does not exist. As per the laws, as per the Constitution, what treason means, it is well prescribed in the Constitution of the United Republic of Tanzania. Lissu is not a public servant of the United Republic. He's not in government. He's not a police officer. He has never been in the army. Maybe when he went for training those days when it was mandatory for everybody. But he is not there. So, and the Constitution clearly says these are the people who can, the condition of the parameters that can amount to a treason case in Tanzania, which do not apply in jail. So clearly, it is a fabricated and a politically motivated charge, and that's why he is still spending time in prison. So whether she will drop those charges, because that's what we have been demanding since then. Say this trial or this case is a fabricated one, it is politically motivated, and Lissu has no reason to be spending time in prison, so he should be released immediately, and those charges should be dropped. So whether they are going to drop or not, because they have finished the election, because that was their motive behind for him to be in prison, we don't know.
Okay, so we'll see, we'll know on 10th.
Stella, if I may weigh in, I think I want to disagree with Ontario on especially describing Lissu as cowardly. Sometimes, under such circumstances, the best decision is actually to decide to remain in prison. That assuming he had been offered the opportunity to leave, sometimes the best decision is to decide to remain in prison. It is common knowledge in Kenya, and I believe it should be in Tanzania, that when you are being politically targeted and there's a possibility that there are people who are planning to assassinate you, even your lawyers will advise that you make sure that you spend the night in a prison, because then it's the state's responsibility to keep you alive. So for me, I wouldn't declare that everyone who chooses to stay in a prison, for example, is staying because they're being cowardly, they are actually trying to be a good first aider and make sure that they'll be alive to continue offering the first aid that the country needs. Does he have the option of leaving now? I think Diogretas has really clarified that. With treason, you can never receive bail. But because this case will not attain the threshold of treason in Tanzania, I foresee a situation where Samia is going to maybe drop those charges and use it as PR to say, let us now make peace with each other. It's after the election, let us work together and to run the country. But the bottom line is atrocities have already been committed. She must take responsibility for those atrocities. And when Lissu is out, he should continue offering the leadership that Wanchari is talking about to that process, because it shouldn't stop just because the election has been done. But the resistance must continue until it is recognized that the changes that they want to see in their country happen, and that Tanzania has a leader who serves their purposes. I'm struggling with the National Assembly that has 172 out of 174 seats.
Is it 200 or 100?
What the number of
parliamentary seats?
No, it is 200.
270.
Yeah.
Those kinds of numbers are fuel for a proper dictator. And we have seen what she can do while she was on this other side of the conversation. Now she will claim she is legitimately elected. She will claim that she has numbers in the House. She's free to do whatever it is she wants to do. I'm really worried about a Tanzania that proceeds like that. Unfortunately, I'm also very alive to the fact that the constitution as currently is does not allow Tanzanians to do anything at all.
Yeah, it's
so
done.
Even the recommendation on the SADC report, Observer Mission report, that they should use legal means to challenge the election of Samia is not helpful, because once INEC has announced a winner, nobody is allowed to challenge it, and no courts are allowed to even adjudicate a matter that is challenging the decision that INEC has made, which is quite dictatorial for this age, especially when countries have chosen to have more advanced constitutions where you can practically challenge the election of an individual in court. But that's the situation they find themselves in. So in terms of whether or not they will be able to remove her from that position now that an inauguration has happened, it's a bit difficult, and I think that's why she rushed to do it, irrespective of what was happening in the country, so that she can fortify that position.
Okay.
But I think there's a lot that can be done to just restore order, number one, to start a conversation to ensure that the people who have been killed are actually recognized. Because if the rumors that we are hearing are true, it basically means human rights are being neglected in the country, but most importantly, perpetrators have been given an opportunity to go and clean up the mess so that they will not be able to be held accountable. And that is extremely problematic for a country that is party to the IDHLR and is also party to the international humanitarian law, and therefore should be responsible for protecting its citizens during war, during conflict, even one like the post-election situation, and also during peacetime.
Okay, and that was where I was coming, even as you respond. Do you feel like, yes, Tanzania is headed towards a constitutional moment, but clearly a lot needs to be done, as Stella said. What are your next steps as Chadema?
Just building up on what Stella has been saying also, much as Tanzanians who have that challenge, we cannot challenge what has been done already, because she has already been sworn in as a legitimate president of Tanzania. Yes, the constitution does not allow us to do so. But since day one, on 29th, people have been protesting that we are not going into this election under the current legal framework. They have forced it, and she has forced herself into power. And the only way that the public of Tanzania can continue challenging her is not offering her any cooperation whatsoever until those demands that the public were pushing, that we need a clean, free, fair, transparent election.
I'm curious, what's cooperation in this case? Because either way, she'll continue leading, her projects will continue. So what do you mean by cooperation?
Okay, by cooperation, I don't want to sound that I'm instigating something else, but at least not to be loyal to her.
Okay.
She is not their leader. They have not voted her in. Because when we vote for you, at least we can be loyal to you. Whatever orders you give, at least we can respect. But you are not the leader of the people. So why should the people be loyal to you?
Okay.
Okay? So at least you can get the bigger picture of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And the other way, of course, the way forward. We have been demanding for electoral reforms even before 29th, and some of us want that if these things are not done, the situation we are going to face will be unprecedented. And it is exactly what has happened. And it's because Samia displayed a highest level of arrogance, and maybe she felt we, Chadema, were just, making noise and sometimes illogical noise, and then she gave a deaf eye to the demands. Little did she know that even those demands we were leveling were the demands of the public. Okay? That's why when we were completely out of the electoral map, the public decided to take the matter in their own hands and went into the streets and protested. So going forward, this time around, it won't be, again, electoral reforms. No, it will be constitutional change, the entire constitution of Tanzania, so that you can build the structures in the country that deliver for the people. Because right now, the parliament is totally paralyzed, and even after what they have declared, it's like we're in a monoparty system. Okay, you have members of parliament, almost all of them from CCM. I don't know whether it is a political party or no, but that's something else. But at least the entire parliament. So it is a dysfunctional parliament for the next 5 years. They want to do anything. Those are leaders and the worshippers of Samia Suluhu. Whatever she says, she cannot be criticized by the parliament.
Okay.
Number two, we have the judiciary. Okay? The judiciary, which is supposed to be independent and at least administer justice to the public. In the instance of Tanzania, our judiciary system is highly politicized, highly weaponized, and sometimes instrumentalized to the extent that anyone seeking justice from the judiciary cannot get it. A good example is the ongoing trial of our party leader, Tundu Lissu. In the first place, it should not have been there. Okay? If you had a functional judiciary system, it should have been quashed from day one when they presented it in the judicial processes. But they didn't. Why? Because we have a dysfunctional judiciary system in Tanzania.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Forget about other structures. So if you build a constitution that at least guarantee all these institutions to deliver for the people of Tanzania, not to the individuals who come in the name, so I'm a president or I'm a prime minister or so and so, at least will not get anywhere. So that's why next step for us, it is constitutional change in which electoral reforms form just a dot of it.
Okay. Kenyans usually say state capture, but if you look at it, this is the real state capture.
This is it.
Onchari, coming to you, should this be a lesson to leaders? This is what happens when peaceful people are pushed. And from everything that we've talked about, clearly the generation is different. We are, dealing with a generation or generations that are woke. So do you feel like perhaps this is a wave of liberation sweeping across Africa? Because it's not just Tanzania that is experiencing this. Kenya experienced it last year. It was not the same. But these protests have been there, and they're increasing by the day.
Now, the Kenyan case is very different. You realize when Ruto was elected president, there were no demonstrations.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the 2024 demonstrations were different. They were issue-based because of the financial the bill. Again, there's a stark difference between what's happening in Tanzania right now and what some countries like Kenya have experienced in the past. When you look at the history of CCM, and then you compare with, for example, Kanu, they're totally different. Of course, I respect what he says because he comes from there and he represents Chadema. But then there's some kind of admiration Tanzanians have, actually including Kenyans like me, for the founder of TANU, which later became CCM, Nyerere himself. That is someone we all in very high esteem, a man who stood for fairness, equality, justice, and all that. In fact, it was his dream to have a successful system where the government collects and then distributes to people equally, Ujamaa. Of course, by the time he was dying, he said it had failed, but his intentions were good. So there's some kind of admiration Tanzanians have for CCM. To them, it's a reminder of their founding father. Okay, you cannot compare Nyerere and, of course, Kenyatta here, unfortunately. So the level to which guys in the opposition or leaders in the opposition in Tanzania have to work hard to push CCM even out of power will have to be much harder. You realize the kind of numbers these guys have scored from the time CCM, when Chadema was founded in 1992. I've been very, very dismal, apart from in 2015 when Lowassa managed to get around 39 to 40%. That is when they came close to getting maybe half of the votes cast in the election. And that is because all the opposition parties came together and, backed one opposition candidate. So, and then I think the level of opposition strength in Tanzania is very weak for so many reasons. Tanzania is fairly rural. And what I'd consider, a very nice election for Suluhu turned out to be chaotic because she was scared. She could have won the election without any problem. What she could have done is to let this guy out of prison, he gets to contest, and he could have lost. He was going to lose the election, by the way, because CCM is deeply entrenched in Tanzania, and unlike in South Africa, where citizens have gotten to see that they can go to other parties and get elected, which has weakened ANC, CCM is very strong. You go to rural places, and the only party they know is what? CCM. The opposition parties like Chadema have a foothold in urban centers like Dar es Salaam, Arusha, Moshi, Mbeya. That's where you find a high concentration of elected leaders to opposition parties. But the deeply rural areas of Tanzania are pure what? CCM. So the lady was going to win the election. What she did, she overreacted, she listened to bad advice, and then she caused the chaos we have here. And for your information, my friend from Tanzania, we have a clip of Tundu Lissu saying, kesi yangu imeisha, lakini nitakaa kwa jela mpaka uchaguzi uisha. I'm sure you've seen that. He confessed it. So if he was misleading people, that is okay. But we saw it. I actually have it with me in my phone.
Yeah, it is there.
Yes.
He was just encouraging the supporters who attended the court after dismantling the key witness that was presented by the state. The state believed that was the core of what was forming the case. So after Tundu Lissu, who is defending himself as a lawyer, representing himself, managed to dismantle that, and the judges, the 3 bench judges, agreed to him, then he said, okay, if this is out, then there is no case to answer here. I'm just waiting. He could have also said, I'm just waiting these judges to give me permission to go home, which in reality it couldn't have happened.
Okay.
But it wasn't something serious like he was presenting. He just said, yes, the case is over based on this thing.
So all right, even as you finish, because you'll have the last say, we're out of time.
Yes.
Perhaps even as you conclude your point, you can look at the issue of Kenyans, because there are those who are in Tanzania, and from what the president said, the Kenyans who are worried that perhaps their kin, their friends are not as safe in Tanzania.
Yeah, I think because of the ongoing chaos, there is a legitimate reason to be concerned that they could be unsafe. But then again, I think now that she's been sworn in, she's going to unleash, all the violence to make sure the chaos are controlled, which is unfortunate again. Now, I call this the winter of freedom, which is comparable to the Arab Spring. So we're likely to be seeing this because, just like you noted, we have a new breed of Kenyans, very young people who do not want to take anything as an explanation short of what? Freedom. So they're here. They've been called Gen Zs, but I call them young people because they include millennials like yourself. They don't want to take any explanation. It's either freedom or death. And most of these guys have nothing to lose. So they go to the streets, they destroy property, they burn houses. They've done it in Tanzania. So I think it's a warning to someone like Museveni, and someone like Kagame, the strong men who don't want to cede ground. They'll get encouraged by what's going on in Kenya here, what has happened in Tanzania, and it will spread from country to country until this place is liberated. Freedom can take time. It's expensive. Sometimes it takes blood. but eventually it comes. Museveni must know it, Kagame needs to know it, and I hope William is listening and watching. Work hard, deliver for the people, and you'll be elected. You don't have to kill people to get elected. We've seen that. Once you deliver for the people who've given you a position, they'll just take you back to office. You don't have to do what she's done. And from the kind of analysis I've been able to see, she's not stolen so much compared to other African presidents who steal so much once they've been given office. And obviously you come from there, so you could know better. She did not have to go to the extent she went to prepare the ground for an election. This guy could have been set free. He contests, he loses in a clean election.
Okay.
Yes.
I know there's so much to contest from his words, but that's all the time we had. Thank you so much, lady and gents, actually, for making time.
Just one thing.
In 1 minute.
Yes, in 1 minute.
Okay, but I have to be fair to Stella as well.
Yeah. Chadema is not only in urban areas. It is all over Tanzania. And that's why she was scared, not only arresting and putting Tundu Lissu in jail, but banning the entire Chadema party to operate politically. So all this time during election, Chadema was pushed not to do any political activities. And Chadema was also banned not to feed any parliamentary or councillors. Why? Because we are everywhere, every constituent, every councillor in Tanzania. So maybe you might need to update your information, my friend, because we have worked so hard for the past 10 years.
Okay, Stella, 1 minute.
Thank you for your advocacy, De Gratis. My parting shot is to the AU. I think they really need to go back to the drawing board and reflect on whether they truly respect the instruments that they have adopted. The African Convention on Democracy, Election and Governance has requirements on what a free and fair election is. This election does not pass that test. The election in Cameroon, where Paul Biya imprisoned his opponent, Maurice Kamto, does not pass that test. Any election in any country where the opponent is arrested or the campaigns are not free and fair, voters are not allowed to have access, it does not pass the test. Why they keep on doing observer reports where they give a clean bill of health to those elections, I don't understand. I think they need to engage in a conversation where they're going to ask themselves whether they truly believe in the instruments that they have passed. And I suggest that they allow SADC to lead that conversation, because they seem to be the only people who are left who are true to what they have committed themselves to as member states.
Okay, time will tell. We'll see very soon. Thank you so much. Stella Gara, Governance and Security Expert, Deogracious Munishi, International Secretary, Chadema Party, and of course Onchari Oyeyo, our International Relations Analyst. And that's how we wrap things up here on KTN Prime. Thank you so much for your company and trusting us to inform you this evening. I'm Ashley Mazuri on behalf of the team. Good night.